Hey, Robert, could you
Yes.
talk about updating the Joomla fort, or is that a topic for another meeting?
Well, I could talk about it briefly if you don't mind, Patrick.
No. I'm happy for you to start with a rundown there, because I know that there's a few things that you're asking me that others also ask me. So save my voice for a minute.
Sorry, and if I look away from you, I'm just trying to get the dog away from me. He bugs me. He knows to get. I give him treats when I'm on the phone, so it just bugs me consistently. Look,
yeah, it's Lambert here. I'm also interested in Joomla 4. I'm running Joomla 3 with I've got to forget the plugin now, but anyway, I'd be happy to hear the experience in doing that.
So what I ended up having, I did it sort of two stages. One stage was after talking to Britt and saying, well, I'm going to go to Joomla 4 now. I'm going to spend a bit of time on the website, or maybe I need to do a few other things. So my first stage was to rebrand the website, because I also talked to Britt about her branding, which was really wonderful. And I thought, well, maybe I need to rebrand, refocus the website. So the first stage for me was going through that. But I thought, well, look, I'll combine that rebranding where I'm working on the Joomla 3 website with getting rid of various things that I don't need for Joomla 4. So kind of in the first stage, I could kind of do two things at once, as it were. So Britt very kindly set me up with a server where I could crash things, and all it would do is bring down the crash server, as opposed to my live shared website. And I did find that I had a lot of what I've termed zombie extensions and plugins, and I didn't know I had as many as I did, and modules and all sorts of things like that. So one of the first things I did was to go through and identify move everything over to this other website, see what the minimum number of things was that, according to the Joomla upgrade, I'd need to get rid of, and then look at the clearing up the whole, getting rid of modules and getting rid of these zombie plugins and so forth, and then trying just to narrow it down so I had those things, the importance, Akiba's admin tools, Akiba backup, JCH optimize I use. I knew I could take that, so I'd take that across as well. And then, of course, there were plugins that I couldn't take across. And so a big one for me, and remains so, is Ceph, the SH404 Ceph. I knew I couldn't take that. However, last time I was here, I was told about modern URLs. And so I thought, brilliant, I'll use modern URLs. However, I didn't realize, I'd forgotten because it was such a long time ago. In the SH404 Ceph, you can specify in your URL, your SEO URL layout, whether you want to include all the categories. And I had the brilliant idea of not including the top category in my URLs. So for instance, in my website where I have stories, if I had a URL, which would be fiction, short stories, once upon a time, in the URL, it was just going to come up as short stories, once upon a time. Brilliant. Modern URLs don't work like that, and then it had to have the whole layout. Patrick's going to show us a plugin later on, which I altered images, which I looked at, but could not get it to work the way that I needed to maintain all the links that I've tweeted and Facebook and done all those things over the years.
I probably need to do a session with you to show you where the trick kicks in, because that one's a bit more.
So then what I ended up then doing is with those URLs I spent a lot of time creating redirects and aliases and so forth. And that all worked quite well in the htaccess file. So it kind of worked because it was only the top level category. It identified I found other pages and so forth, or other that I needed to, single articles that I needed to adjust the URLs, but I could get all that worked out. So that's another stage. But this good old SH404 did that, and it also did the SEO side of things. It did the OG graph side of things, the Twitter card side of things. So I had to go and get myself a plugin for that. And as Patrick's going to talk tonight, also look at all my metadata and so on. So I'm sort of stuck at the moment in a stage where I can't quite finish the project because I don't have I bought a tool today, a plugin today from the Netherlands. I thought, well, I trust regular labs. I'm going to buy this nice plugin from the Netherlands, not related to them other than they're both Dutch. But it turns out that it only does the OG tags and the Twitter cards for articles. It doesn't do it for blogs, and it doesn't do it for featured pages like the homepage. And so I've had to put in a support request for that. I also found in a very simple case like Regular Labs, which has got fantastic documentation. It's got a whole suite of configuration options that I didn't know existed for articles anywhere, which I subscribed to, but I didn't know they existed. And when I did the upgrade, the performance of it wasn't the same. It was rescaling images for me, which I didn't want it to do. And it turns out that this is a function that it does, that you can configure, which I didn't know. So what had happened was when I did the upgrade, in Joomla 3, it's set to a particular thing, which I think is standard or something. And then in the upgrade, it is set to yes. So you've kind of got to go through and check all your, if you're using a lot of plugins, it's going to take you quite a bit of time just going back and making sure that everything you've done hasn't got a consequence from going up. Everything you've got hasn't got a consequence from going up to Joomla 4. So in some ways it was smooth. So when I upgraded to Brit's server, it didn't take long to do. I just followed the instructions, kind of worked. I did have some problems with Regular Labs. I got in contact with Peter. Peter kept directing me back to the documentation. I'd read the documentation, and it still didn't work. And then I'd try it again and it would work. So I don't know why it didn't work the first time. I just find it's not as smooth, and I feel I don't have an e-commerce site. And so if you've got shopping carts and things like that, I feel for you, because I reckon there must be, given the little issues that I've had, I reckon there are going to be lots of little things like that are going to trip you up, and you're not necessarily going to know about it until you go to a page and go at some point down the track and go, hang on, that's not working quite the way it was working before. But I might just be unlucky with my upgrade. I don't know. Does that give you guys a bit of an overview?
Yeah, it certainly tells me that it's not just press the upgrade button and it's all fine.
No, it's not that. No. Yeah. You need to do a little bit of planning. Like I said, you need to really make sure anything critical you're running works on Joomla 4 before you go there, I would think.
And Nathan too, I'd say I haven't printed it out because I'm building it up. This was my first part documentation. Can't see it. It's a 2-pager. No, it's okay. It's 2 pages of steps, things I had to think about doing, and that was just on the right. I did this on the test site and this on the test site. And then I had to redo the test site again and go back and follow all these steps to make sure that everything was right. So that's still on the test site. It's still not on the live site. And then I could say, right, now I'm going to apply these things. This was my prep before the upgrade. Now I'm going to apply all this, get rid of the zombie plugins. I'm going to apply that to the live site because I've done it twice now and I know it works. And so apart from the URLs, I haven't changed that. I won't change that until I get post 4 upgrade. And I've done a similar 1.5-page checklist, exactly what I've got to do if I'm going to do this upgrade. Step number 1, back up.
Yeah, it can be quite a long process if you've got a large site. Like I've got a couple that are running like far too many extensions, I think. And I'm not doing any of those in a hurry. I'll wait until it's all their extensions are mature on Joomla 4. So I'm mostly just doing new sites with it at the moment. I've upgraded a couple of sites that were very early on in development. So that was okay. Didn't need to fix too much there. But upgrading a big site. I've done one and had the same kind of issues you did, I guess. Had to contact the developer about various things on a couple of particular components. But it's pretty common. I mean, I remember doing some upgrades from the 1 series to 2 that took a lot longer than the upgrades from 3 to 4 takes. So maybe that's an improvement on some level.
It's the other thing I found was that you know, with some of them, again, I'll pick on Regular Labs because it's the one I did spend a bit of time on it, and that was one that I thought was just going to be easy to do, and once you had to, it gets disabled during the upgrade, and then once you've done the upgrade, then you've got to download from the you can't use the Regular Labs extension manager. At least I couldn't, because it kept splarking out on me. So I had to then download from Regular Labs, not an onerous thing, and then install it all over again and enable it, and it was all work. But if you're using articles everywhere, like I'm using it, that meant for a period of time, only the test site, thankfully, but for a period of time, that test site doesn't have any data. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do, whether I'm going to do. I've done this before, where in an upgrade where I've created the test site, I've created a copy of the live site, I've got it absolutely right, and then I've done a Makiba backup of that site, and then restored that over the live site. So for a period of time, the live site looks awful. You've got to hope no one goes there. So I don't know whether I'm going to do that, or whether I'm going to go step by step upgrading, and you know, for a period of time, very short period of time, articles anywhere, the articles won't have. The stubs will be there and not the articles. I'm not sure what to do.
I think for me that depends on how dynamic the site is.
Mm-hmm.
But this is your personal site?
It's the writer's website. So
the writer's website. Does it have subscribers or anything like that?
No subscribers. So it's not an e-commerce site. So if you went there and you couldn't follow a link, come back. You know.
Yeah. Well, if you don't have data that's changing on a daily basis, then my approach is usually to rerun the updates. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm fairly pedantic about it though. Like, I'll set up a dev site, and you know, if I've got 30 extensions to update, you know, and it hasn't been done for a long time, I'll start with a Kiva backup and I'll run it on the dev site. Ooh, it works. I'll run it on the live site. You know, then I'll do admin tools. Run it on the live site. And I'll work through the extensions one at a time and gradually get the live site at least more updated. And, you know, then work through the troublesome extensions of the developer. But, you know, going from 3 to 4, if you don't have to worry about data being updated daily, I'd choose the restore option, you know, like update it on your dev site, get it all working, and, you know, then restore it over your live site.
I did find with one thing that, and this hadn't been an issue before, because I'd always been overriding the test sites with 3. So restoring from an Akiba 3 over a site, but I tried to restore the Joomla 3 site back over the Joomla 4 environment, and I couldn't do that. In the end, I had to drop the tables and delete the configuration file and so forth to get the update, to get Akiba to go through and do, you know, through Kickstarter or whatever, do the restoration.
Yeah, I probably would do that anyway, I think.
You get rid of the files that shouldn't be there.
Yeah. If I have to do that, I'd just go through cPanel, quickly take the site down, delete all the files, run the restoration, and, you know, go from there. It's probably the...
Well, on a very positive note, I don't know, some of you who were here last time, I was really worried about one extension where I couldn't reproduce it, which was so you could see more of the writing by the author. So I you know, the author would be in the alias field, the author alias or whatever. And I had this extension called FJ related articles, which was not going to go to Joomla 4. I couldn't take it. And I found I could do that functionality using the categories module, standard Joomla. So I was really at that, and the module management, advanced module management from Peter, using those two. That the standard Joomla and that I was able to achieve the same functionality, and it's out of the box. So I figure that's pretty safe compared to worrying about, again, zombie extensions. Hopefully next time I talk to you guys, I'll be finished.
I'm glad to hear that, because I've got that extension on one site. So.
Well, FJ related?
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to, Nathan, I'm happy to ping you some ideas and show you how I managed to do it and reproduce it.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks, Robert. That'd be great.
Yeah, it worked really well. I think I must have found a topic link, and I'll see if I can find the topic link as well, that suggested this is how you could do it. And then but I had to use advanced modules management so I could decide where I wanted to see things based on particular attributes of articles and so forth. But it worked well. I don't know if Britt's still there, but I even ended up using tags for that. So that was it's the first time I've actually used tags on Joomla for anything. So I was pretty pleased with that.
I am here. I'm just having a drink.
That's right. That's the quiet one.
Not on camera. Yes.
Fair enough.
I had a more positive experience with
good.
conversion, and it is a dynamic site, a lot of e-commerce, about 3,000 users. And I don't have a lot of extensions, but I do use Regular Lab Sorcerer. That had a few little issues where I had to basically reinstall it, but I used Kanina Forum, that worked fine. AC mailing, it was all fine. I do take a lot of precautions, so I have 4 levels of staging and convinced myself that it was going to work before I got to the ultimate live site. But yeah, it went fairly smoothly. I'm quite happy with the whole thing. I'm a bit cautious about updates following that schmozzle with 1.1, whatever it was, 1 point something. So I wait a couple of weeks now before I even touch a new update. But the later ones,
I've always been a waiter, Greg.
yes,
I'm happy
yes,
for
well,
other brave individuals.
of course, but it's a toss up between fixing security holes and being uncertain about the reliability. But
yeah, how critical it is. But yeah,
it does. Yeah, I look at how many downloads there've been, and when it gets over 100,000, I figure, well, this update must be okay. Touch wood. So again, I go through do it on the staging sites first, just to make sure. But I'm quite happy with Joomla 4. I do have a question about it. Has anyone looked at the HTTP header management plugin? It looks important, and I did research part of it a while back, but has anyone implemented it, and do you have any comments on the importance of some of those features?
It's
is it
somewhat
covered by admin tools? Or?
Yeah, admin tools is what I use as a generic part of it, but it's there's another layer to it which does all the other things with the HTTP headers, and you can basically customize the path that the headers are going to take. So it's a whole other topic on its own. I wrote an article 18 months ago in the Joomla magazine when it first came out, and spoke to the German guys that actually wrote it. And it was not so much going over my head, but more just smacking me in the forehead for a while there. It's something to, look at further. But I'll probably actually mention the specific thing in admin tools that I set mine to use at the moment, and that covers most of it. Obviously,
I got the impression that some of the features are outside of what admin tools does.
They are.
Particularly referring to content security policy.
Yes.
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
Yeah. So the one setting in admin tools is to do with CORS, which is the cross-origin resource security. And so that's where it sets a particular response out for if you're embedding Google Analytics or a YouTube player or something like that in your site. This particular header determines whether that's going to be allowed by the browser or whether the browser is going to throw an error if you're using a more secure thing. So the rest of the HTTP header stuff covers more than that. I personally haven't gone to the depth of setting it up to block out everything that shouldn't be there. Probably partially because I've got server level security on a file. Like sometimes too much security ends up just annoying the administrator that has to. I was logging into something today that had 4 layers before it got to the point where it showed me a captcha, and you had to do level 1, 2, and 3 to get to the page that had the captcha. So the captcha was sort of redundant in the end. So yeah, if you're interested, I can get the guys in Germany to put together a presentation on it, because it's certainly quite a technical topic. And when they finished writing at the time, all of the blurb on it was purely technical. And I don't know that they've come up with more of a user-friendly documentation on it yet.
Yeah, it's largely about what stuff your site can share with other sites, and whether they need to be authorized to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's probably a better way to put it, is that if you're providing an API service so that someone can pull data from your website, then in addition to the API key that is the security factor there, you can actually say that only certain websites are allowed to access that information. So then their header matches your header, and it crosses itself out. So
the admin tools options on that have always been a bit limited, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's just
sort of a general bucket on it. What I remember from the article was that you have to put it into a learning mode first, and so then that will generate a list of all of the things that are happening on the website, and then you can go through and create the series of policies there to do it. So it's one of the, I think last time I looked at it, there was 120 pull requests for Joomla over the last 2 or 3 years that had been tagged documentation required, and then they've been merged into the Joomla core, and the documentation required tag still sits there. What that means is that it's part of Joomla, but the documentation hasn't been updated. And so there's plenty of things that anybody that has some time to volunteer to go and do that type of research could go and update the documentation and then get that tag removed. That's a whole side project for volunteer engagement that I'm trying to start at the moment. So, yeah.
Is anyone here using eWay and getting these notifications about getting PCI DSS compliant through their merchant trust initiative?
No, but I'm getting the Stripe version of it as correspondence.
Yeah.
So,
it seems they're starting to insist on this kind of thing, possibly because of all the recent hacking activity that's been going on.
It's certainly
it looks onerous.
Yes and no. There's certainly a best practice element to it. So if you are doing e-commerce, then theoretically it should be straightforward. But you're right that yes, the onerous part is probably that there is a whole heap of steps to go through to get to that point. So I'm going to add that to my list of blog ideas to come up with. PCI DSS, isn't it?
PCI DSS stands for Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard. And it appears that if you're under 20,000 transactions a year, you can self-assess with a questionnaire. I had a brief look at the questionnaire, and it's 50 pages. So, but I haven't really fully investigated what's implied. But if you, eWay is saying if you pay them $130, they'll give you access to this secure trust site,
Yeah.
which helps you it guides your way through that self-assessment and gets you certified.
Yeah.
But you have to do it every year. It's,
Yeah. And depending on the volume of transactions, so I think Easy Debit, which is a direct debit service that I've used, was another one that sent out the basically pre-enrolled all their customers, and then you have the option to opt out of that service recently. But it's I guess if you've worked out that you're PCI compliant, then the third-party tools that you're using, you won't want to, if you happen to be using Stripe and eWay and PayPal, you wouldn't want to have to pay 3 times for the compliance if you know that you're compliant across the whole set of things there. Certainly worth a look into that. So, I might try and find people to talk on both of those topics in coming months. We'll start next year. Yeah.
Doesn't a lot of it depend on how you're connecting to the payment gateway? Because if you're not storing, if you're connecting to them and the...
Sorry, you're just a little bit far away from Stuart's microphone.
I get it. Isn't it more dependent on how you're connected to the gateway and whether you're actually transferring the customer to the gateway to do their transaction and then getting it back into your site? Because at that point, the biggest key is that you're not holding any card data.
Yeah.
Because if you're not holding any card data, then your PCI compliance should be negligible.
No,
No,
I
that's right.
think most people using eWay, I think, would be using the Rapid API,
Yep.
which is also called Transparent Redirect. So even though the form may be on your site, it never goes anywhere near your site. It's goes straight to eWay. Yeah.
Stripe tokenizes their transaction data, so you don't ever get the card number, or you shouldn't have the card number on the site as such. That it only shows you the last 4 digits when you log into the Stripe dashboard. So yeah.
Anyone heard any whispers about Optus or Medibank? The government seems to be putting all the emphasis on trying to catch the Russians, but really those companies must have had leaks in some parts of their system.
So from what I've heard, the Medibank one was a staff password was weak and got hacked, and then they stuck around for about a month before they revealed themselves to have the data. And then I wasn't sure what the Optus one was, but it sounded like it was a publicly open API call on a test server that then happened to mean that you could run the right query and get a full set of data. So it's another topic that I need to delve into as to how to make sure that your Joomla site is completely secure, how to make sure that your WordPress site or reasons not to use WordPress, perhaps, I don't know. I don't know about anyone else. I've probably had 80% of so currently 85% of my sites are Joomla and the other 15 are WordPress. And during COVID, 90% of the problems with websites were with that 15% of WordPress sites. The other 10% were very minor things with Joomla. You just do that for your own amusement there, Robert. You're muted. So. We missed all that, Robert, because you're muted.
Still muted.
Oh, he was doing it for his own amusement. So.
He's happy with
Yes,
that.
yeah, I was trying to find it for you, but I thought it was going to be my pause photo. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, my apologies.
That's right.
Yeah, and fix up my Medibank, will you?
Unfortunately, the general public can get the impression that any site data is open slather to a clever enough hacker, but in so many of these occasions, it's not that at all. It's just problems with the actual protection of the data by the company.
Yeah, and both those cases sound like it's a very irritating human error, a weak password or a public API, is enough to cause havoc there. So
yeah, but unfortunately, the learning experience that might come out of these things doesn't properly happen because companies want to protect the liability of their executives and directors. So they just shut up.
Now, I'm also interested that the scope of the data that's been kept and the length of time it's been kept, and whether when it was first Optus, whether there was the government legislation, government rules that said that they had to keep this data for periods of time, and that's not come up. Not that it's necessarily this government's fault. It was. They wouldn't have been involved when they first were all that metadata protection laws.
Yeah. And parts of it sounds like there's stuff that, and it's like when you're filing your own receipts for your tax that, if the rule of thumb is 7 years, is it actually 7 years or is it 5 years? Or, have you happened to not bother cleaning up that filing cabinet so you've got 10 years or 15 years? And at the same time, the question comes in, why do they need to keep the detail of what they validated? Why can't they encrypt that as a piece of data that isn't actually your license number? So I'm looking forward to a new license coming in the mail soon, because 900,000, along with 900,000 other Victorians. Why do they need to keep that string of data? Why can't they just say, okay, here's the validated, and this is where blockchain might be an option in the future, that it stores the fact that it validated it and it has a record that can indicate what was used to validate it, but it doesn't need the original piece of information to do that. So
no, that's got nothing to do with cryptocurrency, has it?
I think yeah. You walk into a bank and the building is separate to the money. That's if you can walk into a bank. I've worked out that I need to drive 4 kilometres to find a suitable ATM at the moment. So, yeah. All right. That's an unusually long series of general questions to start the night. So
good ones.